Hi, I'm Greg Adamour, real estate coach on Experts of Southern Nevada. Today I'm pleased to introduce our guest, Hubble Smith, who's a writer for the business column in the Review Journal, primarily focusing on real estate. I've been trying to get Hubble to come in for some time. I've been following his articles for years, and I'm very glad to have you here today, Hubble. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the market today. We've talked a lot about the recession over the years, and I guess the new R word is recovery. You see the market recovering now?
Absolutely. We see some positive trends, and recovery is a strange word, because what recovery is for one person may not mean recovery for someone else. So I think you have to qualify. But as far as home sales, the number of home sales, the prices of homes gone up, as you know, 8-9 consecutive months, up 18% year over year. To me, that's recovery. We're seeing fewer foreclosure sales, as you know, more short sales. Mm-hmm. A lot of, and of course, the new home industry is definitely coming back. And of course, we're recovering from bottom lows, so any movement is going to be upward. And so, if that's recovery, I mean it's recovery from the depths. Yeah.
So a lot of people have been noticing that the supply of homes has really diminished a lot in the last several months without the banks foreclosing, and that's led to prices increasing and more people being attracted to Southern Nevada, I guess, not just for prices, but interest rates and just a great value. We commented in one of the other programs that you can actually buy a home now for less than it costs to build in some cases. So,
and that's been true for a while.
Yeah,
cost,
it has been.
Replacement cost and versus per square foot sales price.
In terms of, I've been following your articles for a few years. I've saved them. I have a whole bunch of clippings, and they've been very helpful, because us in the real estate business of realtors, we like to get all the statistics, and you do a great deal of research, and these statistics help us track the market. So, I personally have been blessed to follow your column. And how long have you been with the Review Journal?
It's been 18 years now.
You were in sports editing before?
In California, yeah.
California?
Certainly didn't think I was going to be here 18 years. When people come to Las Vegas, and we end up staying for whatever reasons.
Yeah, my uncle came out here for a week. That was in 1956, mm-hmm. And he settled down. We do have a wonderful community, and it's nice to see people like yourself that are reporting about the community and the recovery that we're making. And you had mentioned earlier that, one of the articles in 2010 said about 80% of people were underwater. And I think you said it's down to about 60% now?
Those are the latest numbers from CoreLogic. They seem to be the one of the primary firms that track that kind of information. And CoreLogic is reporting us that about 60% of people underwater, even down to like 59.7% or something, as opposed to 80% as they reported a couple of years ago.
And with the prices going up, I think in 8-9 months in a row we've had an increase in, is it 18% year over price increases since last year?
That's what a lot of the sources are reporting, including Greater Las Vegas Association of Realtors, that you're a member of. Mm-hmm. Home Builders Research is showing that. Sales Track, mm-hmm. And those are pretty reputable firms here in Las Vegas. Yeah. So if they say 18%, that's what I'm going with.
Right. So a lot of people, let's say they have a home that's worth $200,000, and in the last 2 years now it might be worth $236,000. So those folks that were underwater are treading water, mm-hmm. now. Like I said, a lot of people are returning to a balance where it's favorable for them to fight to stay in their home and to keep their home. And as long as this trend continues, it'll probably alleviate a lot of the problems.
Keep in mind also, Greg, that we're talking about median prices. So mm-hmm. a lot of people, might see that 18% and have that $200,000 home, mm-hmm. and it may not necessarily apply to their house. That their house has not gained 18%, and on the other hand, it may have gained more. This is the median price, and a lot of people get confused. This is where an equal amount of homes sold for above that price, and an equal amount sold for below that price.
I see. It seems that the statistics, I guess, can be deceptive.
Yeah, I'll say they can.
Yeah.
And they can be spun in various different ways to say whatever they want.
Yeah, I noticed at one time when we had spoken, when you quoted me on an article, and I didn't know about the Corey Schiller
Case Shiller
Yeah.
Home Price Index.
Yeah, and that's over a 20-year period where they track each metropolitan area, the biggest 20 cities in the country? Or?
They do. They have a 20-city index, and they have a larger index above that, and they do track it over a 20-year period. I'm not really sure what their methodology is, but I can tell you that they seem to be a little bit behind the real time. They're looking at home sales that were sold probably 2-3 months ago, and those prices then were established probably 2 or 3 months before that. So by the time Case Shiller comes around to reporting it, the market has changed drastically. And it has in Las Vegas.
Yeah. In the field, working every day in the real estate market, I find that appraisers also seem to be sometimes 60, 90 days behind. And because they usually work for the banks, they tend to come in conservative. And I think that's had a tendency to curb the appreciation that we've seen. Even though prices have went up approximately 18%, it seems that when I sell a home for $200, the bank may appraise it at 182 or 185. We understand that the bank's issue and concern is to be very conservative and not overextend and not repeat the problems they made before. But in spite of those type of appraisal issues, I see that the market continues to recover, and that seems to be a great benefit to our community. I wanted to ask you about some of the myths and misconceptions about hedge funds. We hear about people coming in town, these big companies, going to buy 1,000 homes. I think you mentioned one company, I don't know if I mentioned by name, but is there some reluctance for them to come in? Are they still coming in, or is this just rumor? Is that a myth? Or
we know that nationwide this is happening. There's Blackstone and Colony Capital have taken down 29. I know Colony took down 2,900 homes of real estate owned homes that they purchased in bulk across the United States. 2,900, mostly from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac held mortgages. How many of those are actually in Las Vegas? Nobody knows. They're mostly in California, Nevada, and Arizona, where they took down this 2,900 homes. But the breakdown, I'm not really sure what it is.
Seems to be quite a bit of rumors about the banks now releasing some shadow inventory, so-called shadow inventory. Have you? What's your viewpoint on that? Are we going to see a big infusion of homes, or is it going to be a trickle effect? Do you think, with the banks releasing a little bit at a time? Or
the shadow inventory? That's a very interesting concept in and of itself. And what concerns me about this shadow inventory, from a business writer's perspective and a journalist, is we've been reporting about it for 3, almost 4 years now, and we've never seen it quite materialize. Everyone fears like a cloud hanging over us. Watch out for that shadow inventory. It's a cloud. It's up there. It's going to be released. They're going to release all these homes, and the numbers have varied. I've heard first it was 50,000, and it's 75,000 homes. And can anybody put their arm around how many there are? And the banks aren't really saying, and so we really don't know what the number is, Greg. The estimates have been all over the place. I've seen estimates as many as 100,000 homes. And if you look at the delinquency rate in Las Vegas of 11%, you think, well, maybe those homes could be coming down the pipeline. But we haven't seen them yet. We haven't seen them, and in fact, we've seen the shadow inventory kind of shrink because fewer homes are being released on the market. Do they exist? Probably. Probably. They're in some banks' files. Will they come to the market? That is another question. There's a lot of alternatives for those homes before they're released on the market as REOs or real estate owned homes.
Well, good answer, good answer. We know a lot of properties were acquired before AB 284 with MERS and with other recon trusts and so on. And a lot of those titles, where the bank took the properties back, may be in question. There may be a question as to the status, whether or not the bank acquired those in good faith, and whether or not a title company can actually provide title insurance to the new buyer. So there's been a lot of auditing, these affidavits and stuff that are required now for the banks to go forward as a result of the 284. I would see that probably put a crimp in the shadow inventory. Maybe they need to sort that out to make sure all the titles are sanitary and so on before someone acquires that property. I've been talking to some attorneys and trying to bring in a couple of attorneys that deal with real estate law in the future for the program. And there have been some issues where people who had been moved out of their homes have getting letters now and saying the big banks may have violated their own rules and put them out on the street. And now there's a question whether or not the title was acquired properly, the procedures and so on. So I think that may be part of the reason that the banks were just speculating. And I've heard all kinds of numbers myself. But I've heard people say in February there's going to be a big flood of properties. But I've been hearing that for almost a year now.
I think I wrote a story about a year or two ago, and I quoted the Bank of America executive, and this story went nationwide. The Bank of America guy, he was right here in Las Vegas, and he said, we're going to be releasing 500 homes a month. And people were writing that. It went nationwide, and where were those 500 homes? They never quite came out. We never did see 500 homes a month just from Bank of America. In fact, we didn't see 500 total.
Wow. Yeah, that's...
And it could go back to this. It goes back. It very well could go back to your issue of the title, the title issues, and they're clouded, and whether or not they have authority to foreclose, and that mortgage note was sold off to someone else, and then bundled and sold in securities, and became, as you mentioned, the MERS, the Mortgage Electronic Registration System, which a lot of people were disputing that and saying that it's not a valid transfer of title, and certainly the Clark County Assessor's Office misses out on all of those fees every time a deed is transferred. They miss out on those.
Oh yeah.
On that revenue.
That's right. That's right.
But the bigger issue, though, I think is not so much whether or not they have the title to the house. I mean, I think eventually that's going to get cleared up.
A lot of people talking also about the banks. They're being handcuffed by their own procedures. They have to have the affidavit to show that they do own the original note and deed of trust. So a lot of times people who are notified that they're going to lose their home and there's a notice of default, generally what happens is the bank, once a homeowner gets behind about 3 months, they usually send a notice of default. And it says if in 3 months, 90 days, you don't cure the default, then they'll advertise for 21 consecutive days and then have a notice of sale and sell the home. And that's the fastest the process can be. But what a lot of homeowners don't realize is there's mediation for Nevada homeowners. And that's why it's good to talk to an attorney, talk to a realtor, or follow your column and find out what mediation is and how that gives a chance for the homeowner to either reconcile a payment plan with to keep their home or to make sure that all the documentation is proper. Have you done some stories on mediation in the past?
I did a few stories. It was mostly alleged because it was through the legislature. I know that Ed Vogel, our Carson City reporter, covered a lot of that. And the fact of the matter, though, what I found from people talking to me who had gone into foreclosure mediation, is that the banks never had an authoritative representative at the meeting who could make those kind of decisions to say, we're going to modify your loan, we're going to reduce the principal. There was never any resolution at these mediation services, and so I think people got frustrated with it, and the attorneys or whatever, the people that were there to resolve the dispute, the judges, there were no judges, they weren't judges, they were just mediators, and so they tended to side with the banks, it seemed. And the people were not getting much relief out of the foreclosure mediation program. I think the foreclosure mediation program was a good idea, just like the government programs, HAMP and HAFA and HARP. Does it work? For a very sliver amount of people. In the end, the free market system is going to take its course. And if you want to, let's get back to the thing on the clouded issues and the title issues. Someone once told me, and I wrote this story. It was the guy from one of the companies that foreclosureradar.com, and I remember his quote that there are no free homes. There's going to be no free homes in Nevada or Las Vegas or the country. So a lot of people, if you're thinking that because the bank cannot produce that note, because they can't produce the original document of who owns the loan, then you get your house for free. I don't have to pay on it, and we'll go to the bank. Some judge somewhere is going to say, Hubble Smith, you signed this. We don't have the deed of your house and the title because it's been sold in this, but we do have this contract that you signed with a bank to borrow $100,000 to buy that house. Did you sign that? Yes.
Exactly.
Do you owe that money? I do. So it really doesn't matter where the title is. It's the fact, do you owe the money or do you not?
Right.
I think that's a pretty simple, cut and dried thing.
Right.
And if people think they're going to get out from paying, I mean, you've got debts and obligations that you have to pay.
That's right.
If you buy a car and you agree to make these payments and you don't make it, they take it back from you.
Yeah.
And you can say, well, my car's not worth what it was when I bought it for, or, anyway.
Either way, you're going to be stuck losing the car and losing the home, and your credit would be adversely affected. We're getting more and more discussions regarding the clear chain of title and the transfer of these properties. And I think what I've been hearing a little bit from attorneys and seminars that I go to, that judicial foreclosure may be on the horizon for a lot of the banks that have been frustrated they can't proceed against the homeowners, and several homeowners may be in the home for 3 or 4 years or more. And because there is this issue over who owns the mortgage, who's got the blue ink, and there's affidavits that have to be signed, they're in there squatting more or less. And from what I understand, the banks have been regrouping, retooling, and what they'll do now is go to state court, file a judicial foreclosure where the homeowner has 20 days, like any other lawsuit, to respond to. And then after a very short period of time, you go before the judge, and just like you outlined, the judge is going to say, well, Mr. Homeowner, I see that you've been making payments up to this point. This is your signature on this note in deed of trust. Even though it's not the original, they'll see it's your signature. And you can't lie under oath. People aren't going to misrepresent that. Judge is going to side in favor of the plaintiff, in this case the bank. And a lot of people will be or could be dispossessed of their homes as a result of that. So what I would encourage all the viewers to do is to get informed, read the columns, call the realtors, call your attorneys, find out your options. There's a lot of help out there. There's free counseling, there's mediation, there's loan modification programs, most of which don't work, but each situation's different. Recently I was helping a friend of mine that bought and sold his homes. Oh gosh, him and his family probably bought 40 homes over the last 35 years for me. We've been friends since 3rd grade. And his name's Doug. So I got Doug approved on a short sale, and the bank in this case was a local bank, Silver State Credit Union. And they came to him in the last minute because they didn't want him to short sale. They're a local bank. They don't have the kind of funds and the reservoirs that the big banks have. So they came to him at the last minute and gave him a loan modification. We got his payment cut down about $800 a month, and he's able to keep his home. But had we not put the pressure on the bank to show that we're doing a foreclosure and produce a hardship, they wouldn't have came in with that sweet deal for him. So it's always good, I think, to get educated, to read the columns. Now, when does this come out? Every week that your column come out?
I write a weekly real estate column in the Las Vegas Business Press, and then I write daily stories for the paper.
Okay, yeah. Some days I see them out there. Some days the headlines,
and other days I'm quiet. Huh?
Yeah. And you've been working on a story recently. I think you mentioned more into commercial, because you cover commercial as well as residential.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yes.
And was it about the small SBA loans?
Right. That's my latest story that I'm working on, is SBA 504 loans. Yes.
Yeah. I heard they revised those in, I think, September or something, or they're about to. And people that have a little bit of equity, like 10% in there, they can get money out to put back to work. And businesses have to be 2 years mature, up and running with a profit. Yeah.
Correct. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And no max. They can't have more than a net worth of $15 million, but they have to have at least, I think it's $5 million in income after taxes, and over a 2-year period. Yes.
Well, that's good news for our local economy.
It is. It is. I think SBA lending is up nationwide. I think I read a number of $50 billion nationwide.
Big number.
Yeah, it's a big number. It created 2 million jobs, and even here in Las Vegas, we're seeing a record amount of SBA lending. One company reported $30 million that they loaned out this year, compared to $18 million last year. So we are seeing those positives. Lending is free, loosening up a little bit. People are able to get financing for both their businesses and their homes, we like to think.
Yeah, that's very good, and that's good news for our local economy. And I think I was reading an article in one of the commercial publications that I get sent from the National Association of Realtors, and said the interest rates are around 5 or 5.5. Is that kind of what? Do they throw any numbers out on interest rates? Is that about the going rate for business loans?
For business loans, 3.5%. I talked to one company, 3G Productions, here in Las Vegas, that got a 3.5% interest loan on 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
On a $690,000 loan to purchase more audio-visual equipment. And then the Collision Authority, I talked to the owner of that. He got about a 4% 4 to 4.5% interest through these SBA loans, through these Small Business Administration loans, which are typically below market rates and only 10% down as opposed to 20 or 25%.
And those are longer-term loans, 10, 20-year usually for the businesses.
I think it's 10-year.
That's what the article said that I read, but it wasn't as current as what you had. So I'm asking you questions before I read the column.
Right.
To get a sneak preview of what we can expect.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great for our economy. I know we're seeing a lot of jobs coming downtown. With Tony from Zappo is bringing a lot of high-tech jobs. It's becoming an attractive market for people to come here and produce. And I don't know yet. We mentioned on an earlier show that there were some articles in the paper about Interstate 11 coming from Phoenix.
Phoenix to Vegas. Mm-hmm.
Does that look like that's still on the board? Or?
It's still on the board.
Yeah.
I don't know a whole lot about I-11 except that it's going to increase interstate commerce, and but it requires a lot of funding, and it's coming out of Washington. And so I really don't know what's going on in Washington, D.C. I know we do have some political clout back there in a certain senator, and so. But as far as will that happen and when will it happen, I don't know. It's just again a lot of funding, involved in that.
Yeah, people need jobs, and I think that's one area where we can look at. There was years and years. There's been talk about Adamour, or the airport that's supposed to be about 12 miles south of Sloan.
Yeah,
have you ever done any articles on that?
I did. I did the Ivanpah Airport when we were reaching capacity at McCarran International Airport, where Randy Walker, the director of aviation, was saying, we were up to close to 44 million airline passengers per year, and the capacity at McCarran is about 50 million. Now it's come down a little bit, obviously with the recession and the downturn, the number of flights, and so there was no real need to build that, although the BLM did deed the land over to the airport, and so they have the land, but I believe it's been pushed out a little bit on the when we'll absolutely need that. And initially, I was hearing that it was going to be another passenger airline, airport, and now they're talking about only cargo coming in through there, so to relieve our cargo. But we're really not at capacity on cargo at McCarran either, so. Just between me and you, Greg, I'm not sure that we need Ivanpah. Certainly not just yet. Yeah. I mean, Las Vegas still has room to grow, and the airport is serving us well. And but they do have it there as a backup plan. And I don't think Randy Walker is going to give the land back to the government and say we don't need it. We'll keep it. We'll keep working on it and hitting those little milestones.
Oh yeah.
Like the environmental impact study that has to be done. A lot of regulation, air quality. Water quality, air quality issues that have to be resolved. Sure. Got to relocate the desert turtle. That was a big deal.
That has been over the years. Oregon has a spotted owl, and we have our desert turtle.
Yep.
Yeah. And I noticed, with the airport opening up their Terminal 3, I think it's called, with the international airport there, they're bringing, well, it's not all international, I think, but they're bringing in a lot of people. We're getting a lot of people coming in for the gaming industry through Macau and China. We're getting a lot of people coming to the airport now, and that's a lot of 44 million. Yeah, there's a lot of people coming here, and people are excited about Vegas. I think we've always been a world famous stage, but I think even more so now with the TV programs that glamorize Las Vegas and the history of it. I think that Vegas is going to recover, and I think we can expect great things in the future. There's a train that's been on the board for years from Anaheim.
Right, the Desert Express, the Magnum Lev. Wow. We've been hearing about that for a long time also.
Yeah, I've been to Europe a few times, and the trains there, I think we take these bullet trains, they're 180 miles an hour. You're going from one country to the next in 2 hours, and I think we're just finally, transportation is going to be evolving, and I'm not sure what's going to happen out of Washington, but they're talking about rebuilding the interstate freeways, putting people to work, and the bridges and so on. So hopefully Vegas will get its share. I know I haven't driven over that one at Hoover Dam yet, but I heard it's quite the spectacle. I flew over it, and it looks pretty impressive. That's supposed to ease some of the traffic, and probably for security purposes too. The people were going over the dam, and that's a national landmark, and the threat of terrorism and so on is something that's really gripped the nation since September.
Things changed since 2001, didn't they?
Yeah, they really have. They've changed a lot. But where do you see yourself in the future here? Are you going to retire in Las Vegas, or have you made plans that far?
Retirement is not a word in my in my vocabulary right now.
Tired but not retired, huh? That's what I always say. Yeah.
But I do like Vegas, and I do see myself sticking around here. I've been 20 years here. I raised my son here, and so I think I'll stay here.
Yeah, great community. A lot of churches, I've told people this a lot of times, and I think you said you were raised Catholic and you got born again and went to a Baptist church. And I tell a lot of people the story that people come to Vegas for a weekend and they just settle down here. But I tell people that there's more churches and houses of worship per capita than anywhere in the country. And I always get the same thing, well, we need them necessarily too to offset the image of Vegas, and the Sin City image. And maybe that's good for some business, but maybe not for the locals that work in the community and raise children, and there's schools, and there's a lot about our community, that parks and golf and, just wonderful things about the community that the tourists never even hear about, let them get to experience. So, like yourself, I have to be an ambassador for Las Vegas, and I really appreciate the column you make. What are you working on recently here? What's coming up this next couple of weeks? Got anything on tap?
Well, let's see. I'm working on medical tourism, and as you mentioned earlier, I'm not strictly residential, also commercial. So I think what I'm hearing is the next boom in commercial real estate is going to be medical office and healthcare, and we're certainly seeing that already with Mountain View doing a $60 million expansion at their hospital, Mountain View Hospital. Mm-hmm. St. Rose Dominican Siena campus has a 124-bed tower that's going out to bid. And of course, you have the $1.5 billion Union Village project not far away from here on 100 acres. And supposedly going to have multiple hospitals and assisted living and senior health care with retail and restaurants all there. Now, this is a very ambitious plan, but should it come to fruition, I think it'll put Las Vegas not just on the map, but it will make us the #1 destination for medical tourism. And we've got the Lou Ruvo Brain Center, and unfortunately the Nevada Cancer Institute went bankrupt. Just not enough. I don't know if there's just not enough critical mass or to sustain that. I'm not sure what the business model behind that is, why it failed. But we certainly think that Las Vegas could become, because of the cheap flights here, the ability to fly here cheaply, the ability to stay here in the hotels, that people with diseases or surgeries could be done here, and people will be flying in and having surgeries done here.
Well, yeah, for many years, growing up in Las Vegas, being here for about 50 years, grew up always hearing, don't have surgery here, go to Santa Barbara, go to UCLA, MD Anderson, go to Arizona, they've got the Mayo Clinics. But as now they're bringing in these medical facilities, which are going to really serve the population well here and attract more people here that do want to come to Las Vegas to retire. And of course, there's no inheritance tax. A lot of people want to jump. We get a lot of people in business. You wrote a column, I think, this week with Randy Alleman, my partner over at Encore Commercial Realty, and a lot of his clients just came in and are opening up big companies to avoid that. Was it 16% or 15%?
That's what Randy said when he put all the taxes together in California, that this one businessman was paying essentially a 16% state income tax.
Wow.
And so you're right, and then with the tax advantages, the weather obviously, and we're going to continue to attract retiring baby boomers, and then there will be that need for healthcare services. I talked to a doctor this morning